Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I want to talk about something that was sent to me by BenQ. Now, if you recognize the name BenQ, it's probably for the same things that I originally knew them for, which was monitors. I had seen their monitors at different trade events showing off color grading and things like that, but they actually make a lot more than that, including what they sent to me, which was the Screen Bar Halo. So that is going to be the subject of today's video. Let's get started. Now, before we get started, I just want to give a little bit of behind the scenes on how I make my videos, because when I record, it's during the daytime almost exclusively, because while I have some lighting fixtures that can definitely make up for not having a big window next to me, I tend to like to use the big window, at least in early parts of the day, so that I can have a nice even source of light. And then in the evenings, after I spend the entire day either recording or getting other things done, I will sit with as many lights off in the apartment as I can and do my editing. And I turn the lights off because when you're doing color grading, you want to have as low of a light environment as possible so that there are fewer variables to affect how you're perceiving the colors off of your display. However, I work off of a desktop exclusively, and I prefer, whether you agree with me or not, the feel of Apple's keyboard and trackpad. But because I'm not using the laptop version, I don't have a backlight, and, well, Apple has failed to provide a backlit version of their keyboard. So for a while now, I've been using a fairly cheap IKEA lamp that has a wireless charger built in and a Hue light up inside of it so that I can see my keys from something more than just the light coming off the monitor. Now, don't get me wrong, I've seen light bars before, but I've usually avoided them for a couple different reasons. Number one is because I figured that because of how close they're mounted to the monitor, somehow the light would be bouncing back into the monitor and glaring off of it, and that would affect the accuracy of my color grading. Secondly, most of the ones that I had seen were fairly inexpensive and were just cheaply made, or at least it looked like that in the pictures. Mostly plastic, and overall they had probably the same LEDs you would find in those cheap little light bars you can buy to put in your car at AutoZone. And the third and probably biggest reason that I was avoiding them was because the controls for them were not great, in my opinion. They were either mounted directly to the light bar itself, requiring you to reach up above your monitor to adjust things, or they had a cable running down from the light bar into a hockey puck or button set or something like that, and they just weren't really that good. However, once I received this light bar from BenQ and began unboxing it, my second concern was immediately thrown out the window. This thing is extremely well made. Metal everywhere. Where there is plastic, it's not cheap feeling plastic. It is generally a well-built device. And the way the LEDs look inside, if you've looked at LEDs in the past, you can kind of visually see whether they're going to be high quality or not. And these are very high quality LEDs. And we'll dive more into that in a minute. But overall, the build quality was fantastic. Also, something I noticed that I didn't personally have to take advantage of, but I thought was really cool, is that they account for multiple kinds of monitors, including curved monitors. It actually came with some foam pads to allow you to mount this to a 1000 to 1800R curved monitor. I don't have that, and the closest curve I have in my monitors is the fact that the two of them sort of meet at an angle, but it's not going to mount to that. So flat monitors or curved monitors, you're set. Two monitors together at a really harsh angle, I don't expect anything to work with that, so it's fine. And just to stick with build quality for another minute here, every moving part on this feels extremely well made as well. From the hinge used to rest the back of the device onto your monitor to hold it in place, to the tube that holds the LEDs and the rotation required for the adjustment, to the part you're going to touch the most, the remote, and the actual smooth rotation of the dial. That thing is so well done. And because the ring that is part of the dial is metal, you have a very nice sort of cool to the touch metal feel as you twist it to adjust the brightness or the color temperature. And speaking of color temperature and brightness, this is where my first and third concerns are fully addressed. So as I mentioned earlier, my first concern with these devices was that because they're mounted directly to the monitor, the light bar would glare into the monitor and affect how color accurate my grading would be. But because of the way that these LEDs are designed inside of the actual rail on top of the monitor, it's basically a straight line of light in front of the monitor that doesn't bounce off the monitor unless you rotate it so far back that it does, and then it goes out towards you from that point forward. Now, BenQ claims on their website that this will get a 500 lux wide range brightness. I'm not super familiar with what that means. This was the graph on their website. However, I know for me, the brightness at maximum was too much, so I actually used the auto brightness feature more than anything else, because this has a light sensor to read the room's brightness and adjust the light accordingly. That's super nice. On top of that, if you do need to adjust the color temperature or brightness, these are stepless LEDs, meaning that as you adjust the brightness, there is no jump between brightnesses. It is a very smooth adjustment, unlike the AutoZone comparison that I used earlier. Now, I'm spending all this time talking about the front LED bars because they're what I ended up using the most, but this has a rear LED set to light up the back wall and back section of your desk for some nice separation. Now, because I use a dual monitor setup, I didn't use this too frequently just because it did feel a little unbalanced since I use both monitors fairly equally when I'm not doing video editing. However, during video work, I did actually turn it on quite a bit just to have a bit of visual separation. You can actually set this up in 3 different ways. You can have just the back LEDs on, you can have just the front LEDs on, or you can have both on. BenQ calls these 3 different eye care levels. I don't know personally if the eye care is actually a thing for the different lights turned on. However, I do know with color temperature, that can help, making the light warmer or cooler depending on your environment and the kind of things that you're looking at on the screen at any given time. Like I said, for me personally, whenever I was doing regular work, not video-specific work, I would just have the front LED bar on. However, once I started doing video work, I would turn the back one on just to have a little bit of visual separation, and it would also just add a little bit extra light in the otherwise dark room that I was editing in. In my opinion, the quality of the LEDs and the wide range of adjustments available on them are really nice, but how do you adjust them? Well, you adjust them with what actually addresses my third concern. Now, going back again to my concerns with these light bars, the third concern I had was the controls, because you either had them on the top of the device or you had them on the desk with a hideous wire running somewhere. Not the case with the Halo. The Halo comes with a fully wireless dial, and from what I saw on the website, this is BenQ's first wireless controlled light bar, and oh, I love it. Now, in lieu of an ugly power cord running somewhere onto the desk, it has 3 AAA batteries under a small magnetic door, and the battery life seems to, at least so far, be really good because it goes to sleep after about 5 seconds. And I was originally going to complain about how it sort of takes it a minute to wake up and I would just tap it and nothing would happen. Then I read the instructions, which I hadn't picked up since I originally set it up, and I realized that if you hover your hand over top of the dial, it will wake up, and it wakes up rather quickly. So if you're not an idiot like me, you just hover your hand over it and then change whatever setting you need. And changing the settings is extremely nice on this because, as I mentioned earlier, the dial is so nice. The bearings they chose are incredible. The metal finish around the ring, and I don't know if it's glass or plastic for the touch control, but whatever it is, it doesn't collect fingerprints terribly badly, and you can just wipe it off if you need to. But on the control surface, you of course have the power button as well as the button to choose which set of lights is turned on. You also have brightness and color temperature, and my personal favorite button, the auto brightness button. But you also have the little heart. Now that's your favorites button, and I left this at the default because what that came set with, at least on mine, was a very warm color temperature and not a whole lot of brightness. So whenever I'm not using the device for color grading and I'm not really heavily using my computer, I'll set it to that just so that it's a bit easier on the eyes. It doesn't exactly counteract the blue light coming off the monitors themselves, but it is nice enough that if I do have that light on and I happen to use it for reading, which I've done a couple times now, it is a lot easier on the eyes. BenQ does claim a 1 meter range, and it does seem to work from a pretty decent distance away, though for me, it's right next to the device, so it wasn't really a concern for me, but it's nice to know that it can work from a pretty good distance away. Now, of course, I'm sitting here talking about all the things this light bar does and how it worked in my workflow, which was brilliantly, by the way, but I'm sure a lot of you are asking what the price is. Well, it's $179 US. Now that seems a little steep, I can completely understand, and there are some other cheaper alternatives both through BenQ and through other companies, but as I've begun to use this device more and more, I've come to the realization that because of how well it's built, this is going to be something that I'll be using for a very long time to come. On top of that, something else that some people may not notice, but I know I certainly did as somebody who works with video and lighting on a regular basis, is that the LEDs in the light bar are extremely well matched, meaning that as you adjust the color temperature, it is consistent across the board. And aside from the LED light bar itself, I'm almost certain that the wireless controller being, well, wireless and very well made added to the price of this device. But with all those things in mind, the general build quality being fantastic, the LEDs being very well matched and very consistent, and as I mentioned before, the wireless remote, this, for me, is definitely worth the price. Whether it's worth the price for you is something you will have to decide. But if you do decide to, there is a link down in the description where you can go check it out. At the end of the day, the light bar idea was something that I was sort of gun shy on, but now I am fully convinced is a very, very good way to have a well-lit desk without affecting the overall quality of your color grade. And if you're just using it for general purposes, it is awesome if you're using it in a desktop environment. I didn't test it on a laptop, but I can only imagine that it would be kind of odd. But either way, those are my thoughts on the BenQ Screenbar Halo. Huge thanks to BenQ for sending me out this device, though I do want to point out for the sake of transparency that this video is made courtesy of a review sample sent to me by BenQ, but no compensation was given because I do not do paid reviews. On top of that, there was no pre-copy approval given or pre-screening of this video by BenQ before it went live, meaning that they are watching it right alongside you. Either way, that's been it. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And aside from that, I will see you all in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.